Las Vegas, Nevada, the glittering heart of modern gambling. Every year, over 30 million people flock to this desert oasis, all chasing the same dream, hitting the jackpot. They pump a staggering $115 billion into the city's economy, but the house always has the edge. Most visitors leave with lighter wallets than when they arrived. But some people aren't satisfied with those odds. They decide to cheat. Casino cheating is big business, potentially netting millions, if not tens of millions, of dollars annually. The most elusive cheaters? Those who know how to work the system from the inside. From corrupt casino employees to professional gamblers with a few tricks up their sleeves, it's an ongoing battle on the casino floor. Among these high-stakes swindlers, one group stood out, the Tran Organization. This Vietnamese-American family didn't just bend the rules, they rewrote them. Their scam was so sophisticated, so well executed, that it took years for authorities to catch on. This is the story of how the Tran Organization turned the tables on casinos across North America, walking away with millions before their luck finally ran out. Before we get started, I would like to give a shout out to Marmy Boucher. You're doing great things for this channel, and we enjoy having you here. Now let's get to the video. In the shadowy world of casino cheats, few groups have achieved the notoriety of the Tran Organization. This wasn't just a loose collection of gamblers trying their luck. No, the Trans operated more like a well-oiled machine, a family business where the product was deception and the profit was measured in millions. At the helm of this operation was Puong Quoc Truong, known in gambling circles as Pai Gao John. Truong wasn't born into wealth or privilege. Like many Vietnamese immigrants, he came to the United States in the aftermath of the Vietnam War, searching for a better life. But somewhere along the way, Truong's American dream took a sharp turn towards the illegal. Truong didn't work alone. He built his organization around a core of family members and close associates, many of whom shared his Vietnamese-American heritage. This tight-knit group formed the backbone of what would become one of the most successful cheating rings in casino history. The Tran Organization didn't spring up overnight. Its roots can be traced back to the early 2000s when Truong and his associates began to formulate their plan. They weren't content with small-time scams or petty theft. Their ambitions were much grander. What set the Trans apart was their deep understanding of casino operations. Many of their members had worked in casinos, giving them insider knowledge of the games, the security measures, and most importantly, the weaknesses in the system. They knew that to beat the house, they needed to attack it at its most vulnerable point, the shuffle. Their weapon of choice? A technique known as the false shuffle. This wasn't some sleight of hand trick that could be spotted by an eagle-eyed dealer. The false shuffle was a sophisticated maneuver that required the cooperation of the very people meant to prevent cheating, the dealers themselves. The Trans didn't just rely on luck or skill. They meticulously planned each operation, often spending months preparing for a single scam. They would identify potential casinos, recruit insiders, and practice their techniques until they were flawless. This level of preparation set them apart from other cheating operations and made them incredibly difficult to catch. As their confidence grew, so did the scope of their operations. What started in a handful of casinos in California soon spread across the United States and into Canada. From the glittering casinos of Las Vegas to the riverboats of Louisiana, no gambling establishment was safe from the Tran Organization's reach. The family's success was staggering. In just a few years, they managed to cheat casinos out of an estimated $7 million. Some reports suggest the true figure could be much higher. The money flowed in faster than they could count it, fueling a lavish lifestyle of luxury cars, high-end real estate, and extravagant parties. But success came at a price. As their operations expanded, so did the risk of exposure. More people were brought into the fold, and not all of them could be trusted. The larger the organization grew, the harder it became to maintain the secrecy that had been crucial to their success. Law enforcement agencies began to take notice. Casinos across the country were reporting suspicious wins, all following a similar pattern. But catching the Trans in the act proved to be a formidable challenge. They were clever, cautious, and always seemed to be one step ahead of casino security. The Tran Organization operated in a world where millions of dollars changed hands every day. Where the line between a lucky streak and a calculated scam could be razor thin, they exploited the very nature of gambling, The idea that sometimes, against all odds, people do win big. As the heat began to intensify, the Trans found themselves in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse with law enforcement. But unlike the games they had mastered in the casinos, this was one where the odds were slowly turning against them. The stage was set for a showdown. On one side, a family-led organization that had cheated its way to millions. On the other, a determined group of federal agents ready to bring them down. The question wasn't if the Trans would be caught, but when and how much damage they would do before their luck finally ran out. At the heart of the Tran Organization's success was a technique so subtle, so ingenious, that it fooled even the most vigilant of casino security experts. This wasn't a matter of marked cards or loaded dice. The Trans had found a way to turn the very mechanics of casino card games against the house itself. Their weapon of choice? The false shuffle. In any card game, the shuffle is crucial. It's meant to randomize the cards, ensuring fair play. Casinos have strict procedures for shuffling, often using multiple decks and complex shuffling machines. But the Trans had found a way to make a shuffle look random when it was anything but. Here's how it worked. A dealer, recruited by the Tran Organization, would perform what looked like a thorough shuffle. To the untrained eye, and even to most trained ones, nothing would seem amiss. But in reality, a section of the deck remained in a specific known order. This is where the real magic happened. The Trans didn't need to know the order of the entire deck. They just needed to track a small section, sometimes as few as 20 or 30 cards. This slug of cards, as it's known in the industry, was all they needed to gain a massive advantage.
They call it the sky shuffle. It's intended to fool the eye in the sky. And it's a very simple shuffle where the cards are just riffled and then thrown right back on top of one another. It looks as though the cards may have been mixed. The cards were not.
But knowing the order of cards is useless if you can't bet on them. This is where the team aspect of the scam came into play. The Tran Organization would send in a team of players, each with a specific role. One member, often called the spotter, would play at the table, making small, inconspicuous bets. Their job was to track when the known slug of cards was about to be dealt. When the moment was right, they'd signal to the big player. The big player would then swoop in, placing large bets with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what cards were coming. To the casino, it would look like a high roller on a lucky streak. In reality, it was a carefully orchestrated performance. The genius of this scam was its simplicity. There were no electronic devices, no sleight of hand at the table. Everything happened in plain sight, relying on the casino's own dealers and procedures. The Trans favored games, like mini baccarat and blackjack. These games were perfect for their technique. In mini baccarat, for example, knowing just a few cards in advance can swing the odds dramatically in the player's favor. But the false shuffle wasn't the only trick up their sleeve. The Tran Organization also employed a technique known as card steering. In some games, the dealer would surreptitiously move certain cards to specific players, further stacking the odds in their favor. The level of coordination required was staggering. Each member of the team had to play their part perfectly. The dealer had to perform the false shuffle flawlessly under the watchful eyes of pit bosses and security cameras. The spotter had to track the cards without giving themselves away, and the big player had to bet big at exactly the right moment, all while maintaining the facade of a typical high roller. Training for these operations was intense. The Trans would set up mock casino tables, practicing their techniques for hours on end. They studied casino procedures, learning how to blend in seamlessly with the crowds of ordinary gamblers. What made the scam even more effective was its flexibility. The Tran Organization could adapt their technique to different casinos and different games. They were always evolving, always one step ahead of casino security. The payouts were enormous. In a single session, they could walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Over time, these winnings added up to millions. And because they were using the casino's own games and dealers, the money was paid out legally. To all appearances, they were just very lucky gamblers. But luck had nothing to do with it. This was a meticulously planned, expertly executed scam that exploited the very foundations of casino gaming. The false shuffle technique was not entirely new. Versions of it had been used by cheaters before. but never had it been employed on such a scale, with such organization and success. The Tran Organization had taken a known vulnerability and turned it into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. As casinos began to notice patterns of unusual wins, they tightened their security measures. But the Trans were adaptable. They moved from casino to casino, always staying one step ahead of suspicion. Their success relied not just on technical skill, but on psychology. They understood that casinos expect to lose big sometimes. A high roller on a hot streak isn't unusual. By spreading their activities across multiple casinos and mixing big wins with deliberate losses, they stayed under the radar far longer than anyone thought possible. The Tran Organization's scam was a perfect storm of insider knowledge, technical skill, and daring. It exposed vulnerabilities in casino security that many thought impossible to exploit on such a scale. And for years, it made them millions, all while hiding in plain sight on casino floors across North America. The Tran Organization's reach extended far beyond a few local casinos. Their operations spanned across North America like a complex web, touching nearly every major gambling hub on the continent. At its peak, the organization had infiltrated casinos in at least 18 states and several Canadian provinces. From the neon-lit strips of Las Vegas to the bustling boardwalks of Atlantic City, from the riverboats of the Mississippi to the tribal casinos of California, the Trans left their mark everywhere. This vast geographic spread was a key to their success. In a single month, they might hit casinos in California, Nevada, and Connecticut. Their ability to move swiftly between different jurisdictions made them incredibly hard to track and allowed them to stay ahead of suspicions. The scale of their operation required a large and well-organized team. At its height, the Tran Organization is believed to have involved over 40 members. This wasn't just family anymore. They had expanded to include a network of dealers, players, and even some unwitting accomplices. Their recruitment process was shrewd and targeted. They often approached dealers who were in financial trouble or had gambling problems of their own.
You only steal like once a month. Mm-hmm. I have 7 cars myself.
Oh, for real?
Okay. Turbo, Porsche, Mercedes, like parked everywhere in front of my garage. Everybody know me.
With promises of easy money, they'd bring these insiders into the fold. Some dealers were paid as much as $3,000 per shift for their cooperation, a tempting offer for someone making minimum wage plus tips. These weren't small-time bets either. The Trans would often wager tens of thousands of dollars on a single hand. Their big players would buy in for $100,000 or more, presenting themselves as high rollers to justify their large bets. The organization's success allowed them to live lavishly. Some members took extravagant vacations, staying in top-tier suites at the very casinos they were cheating. This ostentatious lifestyle would later provide crucial evidence for prosecutors. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the Tran Organization's scope was its duration. They managed to operate for nearly 5 years before law enforcement finally caught up with them. In the world of casino cheating, where most scams are caught quickly, this longevity was almost unheard of. Their ability to evade detection for so long spoke to the sophistication of their operation. They used burner phones to communicate, paid their members in cash to avoid a paper trail, and constantly evolved their techniques to stay ahead of casino security. The Tran Organization didn't just operate in isolation either. Evidence suggests they had connections with other criminal enterprises, possibly exchanging information and techniques. This network extended their reach even further, making them a truly formidable force in the underworld of casino cheating. As their operations grew, so did the risks. More people involved meant more potential weak links. Larger wins meant more scrutiny from casino security. The very scope that made them so successful also set the stage for their eventual downfall. By the time law enforcement began to piece together the full extent of their operations, the Tran Organization had left a trail of deceived casinos and millions in illegitimate winnings across North America. Their scope was unprecedented, their impact profound, and the challenge they posed to the casino industry was unlike anything seen before. The Tran Organization seemed unstoppable. For years, they had outwitted casino security, raked in millions, and expanded their operation across North America. But as the old saying goes, the house always wins in the end. The beginning of the end came in 2005, when alert staff at the Siquan Casino near San Diego noticed something odd. A group of players was winning at an impossible rate. The casino's surveillance team began to watch them closely, and slowly, the pieces started to fall into place. What the Siquin Casino had stumbled upon was just the tip of the iceberg. As they shared their findings with other casinos and law enforcement, a pattern began to emerge. Similar groups had been spotted at casinos across the country, always using the same techniques, always walking away with large sums of money. The FBI, working with the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, launched Operation Double Down. This massive investigation would eventually involve multiple federal agencies, including the Internal Revenue Service and the Department of Homeland Security. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered the full scope of the Tran Organization's activities. They weren't just dealing with a few cheaters. This was an organized criminal enterprise, operating on a scale never before seen in the casino world. The breakthrough came when investigators managed to flip some of the organization's lower-level members. These insiders provided crucial information about the group's structure, methods, and key players. Armed with this knowledge, law enforcement began to close the net. In 2006, federal agents executed a series of coordinated raids across California. They hit homes, businesses, and even some of the casinos where the Trans had operated. The evidence they uncovered was damning. Lists of recruited dealers, practice tables for perfecting the false shuffle, and piles of cash. But the Trans didn't go down without a fight. Many of the organization's top members, including Phuong Quoc Truong himself, managed to evade the initial raids. Some fled the country, hoping to escape justice. What followed was a years-long process of tracking down fugitives, building cases, and navigating the complex legal landscape of multi-state and international crime. The investigation would eventually lead to the indictment of 47 individuals connected to the Tran Organization. In 2008, Phuong Quoc Truong, the mastermind behind the operation, was finally arrested. He had been hiding in Vietnam, but returned to the United States to face charges. His capture was a major victory for law enforcement and marked the true end of the Tran Organization's reign. The trials that followed revealed the full extent of the organization's activities. Prosecutors painted a picture of a sophisticated criminal enterprise that had cheated casinos out of millions. They detailed the false shuffle technique, the recruitment of dealers, and the lavish lifestyle enjoyed by the group's leaders. Many of the indicted members chose to plead guilty, hoping for leniency. Truong himself eventually pleaded guilty to conspiracy to participate in an enterprise influenced by organized crime, theft of funds from a gaming establishment on Indian lands, and tax evasion. The sentences handed down were severe. Truong was sentenced to 70 months in federal prison and ordered to pay $5.7 million in restitution. Other key members received sentences ranging from 18 months to several years. The downfall of the Tran Organization sent shockwaves through the casino industry. It exposed vulnerabilities in security procedures and highlighted the need for better coordination between casinos and law enforcement. In the end, the very scale of the Trans operation contributed to their downfall. Their success had made them overconfident. Their expansion had created weak links, and their lavish spending had drawn unwanted attention. The House had finally caught up with them, bringing an end to one of the most audacious and successful cheating schemes in casino history. If you're intrigued by the audacious schemes of the Tran Organization and the vulnerabilities they exposed in the casino industry, you won't want to miss our video, Shocking Casino Scandals. 10 times they refused to pay. Dive into the darker side of gambling, where the House doesn't always play fair, and discover jaw-dropping stories of players who were cheated out of their rightful winnings. Trust me, you'll walk away with even less sympathy for the casino industry than you started with. Watch it now.